Welcome to Canada's podcast.
Hi, this is Cynthia Lockery from Canada's podcast, where we talk to entrepreneurs who are making it happen right here in BC. Today, I'm joined by Dustin Service. Dustin is a financial advisor who has been working with high net worth business owner families since 2005. With a background in civil engineering, he uses a combination of science and psychology to help his clients realize his dreams. Welcome. I'm looking forward to learning about your journey. So why don't we jump in and you tell us a bit about yourself and your company?
Sure, Cynthia. Thank you. If we're just diving right into it, I'll go right to the meat and potatoes. For any listener who is a business owner, entrepreneur, you understand loving your business, focusing on it, and nothing else matters. And for me, it was, 5 years of fertility trouble with my wife and getting, just kind of my head in the weeds, per se, of using the business as a distraction to, escape a sort of coming, and actually talking about some of the things that were going on in my life. And one day, we had finally had a child, and I had told my wife, I'm going to book us a gym appointment, to work out together. And she said, okay, that's great. To be honest, I hadn't been very present for a while. And, because in my mind, it was business first, then family. And it was not, you couldn't have one or the other. You could be a great dad or great husband, but you couldn't also be a successful business entrepreneur. You had to be one or the other. And so, but we booked this, gym appointment, and, 4:30 came around, and 4:45 came around, and then my office phone rang, and it was, I could see my wife, her phone number, and I answered the phone in sort of a sexy voice, like, Service Wealth Management. And she said, well, aren't you coming to the gym? Like, you booked the daycare and we were going to work out this afternoon together. And I'd completely 100% forgot about even booking the daycare in the morning. And I drove home, and, that, was the catalyst of, there's a longer story, but that was the catalyst that I need a better way. I need to understand as an entrepreneur that you can be successful and be good on the home front. And what was born was something called the Spending Accelerator, which we now use with our clients in, helping understand, just where are you financially? Because, if you're an entrepreneur and you were it was ingrained in you somewhere, maybe a parent, mentor, coach, somewhere when you were young, if you want to get somewhere in life, you got to work hard. Well, how hard? I don't know, but I'm just going to work really effing hard. And for how long? I don't know. I'm just going to work hard forever. And if anyone resonates, listener, if you resonate with that, and if you haven't checked in on yourself or had optics into where you are, and not just on money and being, whether you're rich or not, it's like where you are in life. And if you strip everything back, where are you with your goals and your values? And you might actually be in a way better place than you think.
Yeah. And I think as a mom, that's a working mom, that resonates with me is how we struggle with that balance. So what inspired you to become an entrepreneur in the first place?
Sure. So you mentioned in the intro, I did take civil engineering in school. And at that time, I was always interested in designing things and building things and process and plan. And I graduated university in 2002. And at that time in Alberta, you could make more as a 2-year diploma graduate than a full-blown engineer in BC, just the way that the oil patch was going. So I went to Alberta. I had, my class 3 semi-driver license that if I didn't get a job in the engineering field, I was going to go drive dump truck in Fort Mac. That was my plan B. And thankfully, I did get a job in Calgary working for a survey firm. And speeding it up a bit, I had worked in the office. I had 2 monitors. One of my monitors, I'd be trading stock, and the other monitor would be doing my work. And that's at first, my bosses would be like, hey, get back to work. But we literally worked 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Then we'd go work out. We'd eat at the office, and we'd work 7 to 11 and do this for like 20 days in a row. At that time, it was just the way things were. And I was, 22 years old or 21. And at some point I realized it's like, then the market had gone up to 2005 just from the tech crash happening, and then it went up. So it wasn't like I was a genius, and people in the office had, used some of my comments to pick their group RSP and those investments that we had through the office, and they'd gone up. And it wasn't because of the picks. It was more along the lines. But I liked working with people, and I had lost lots of money, but I had made more than I had lost in trading. And side story, back in the early 2000s, I walked in as a 21-year-old and went to Scotiabank, and they gave me a $50,000 line of credit, interest only, unsecured by nothing. And they said, well, what do you plan on using this for? And I said, I'm just going to day trade stocks. And they said, oh, okay. And they, signed the application, and how different the times are now. But, looking back now, seeing how risky that was, it's pretty risky. But my philosophy was I had a savings account. So I can't remember what I had in the savings account. Say I had 25,000 or 20,000 in the savings account. I had this 50 grand line of credit that I would max out, buy a stock, leave it for a day or two, take it out. And it wasn't like hourly trading, and the frequency trading wasn't there, but I would leave it for a day or two. If the swing went the right way, I would get out, pay off line of credit, and leave the difference. Now, in my head, I always thought, if the stock went to zero and I'm left with this 50 grand line of credit, how many months of interest only payments do I have in my savings account? Mm-hmm. And if I had to, I would go back to Fort Mac, or I'd go to Fort Mac and drive dump truck, pay it off, and that'd be fine. So that was my risk analysis of that time. So helping people, I liked that at the office. I liked working with money, which I've always had a paper route since I was 8 and different things. So I said, I'm going to be a stockbroker and drive a Ferrari. That was literally my thought process when I left the oil patch and came to Kelowna. Short stint at the stock brokerage. Here's the stack of postal codes. Phone them. It was terrible. So I went to one firm for 8-9 months. It didn't work out, and then I joined 2 guys and worked there for 8 years as their. I had tons of credentials and different things that I picked up, and worked sort of as their support advanced case coordinator. So that was, went there for 2014, and then 2014 started the brand Service Wealth, even though behind the scenes it had kind of existed in behind this partnership.
So with the work that you do now, and you help family-owned businesses, what are you most proud of?
Probably my 2 sons, to be honest. Not, in the business. The business is its own thing, but they're 8 and 6. They're almost 8 and 6, and they have a world. They see things a lot different, and so to be able to be part of that and live, a little bit not immature, but live more with them and through them, and experience some of those things again. Because entrepreneur listener, I don't know if you've sacrificed things throughout life in the quest to do the right thing, to try and advance your career, to try and advance your business, or not suckhold your way, but you've made decisions to get in the pursuit of getting ahead. And again, as you get older, and I'm into my young 40s, you start to realize that, a lot of those people, some of those people from a long time ago, they're not even part of your life anymore, yet you've sacrificed that. And my father shared a story a long time ago where he was an advertising executive. He had a budget. He would pour that budget into, ski passes and big conventions at resorts. And so people were always on him, and he was the man. They were moving mountains to get to him. And when he retired, he said, within 8-9 months, you call those people and they're like, no, you're just, it was all transactional. And so that I always kind of remember in business to be very careful of, the lasting relationships and not quantity, and having more quality relationships with a smaller group.
And what I like is that your personal values are in line with the values that you have with your clients, right? That family-owned businesses, but also the family that you have. So if you were talking to an entrepreneur who's just starting out, what advice would you give them?
Well, the cliche of the day is get a mentor. It's like, well, where do I find a mentor? And it might be not in the most obvious place. Like when you hear these gurus on podcasts and different things, they say, well, I had a mentor and are part of this group. It's $100,000 a year to join. And, that's my mentor. It's like, well, when you're starting out, the mentors around you, you might not realize they're mentors, but be aware of sort of where you're getting your info and what you're using as credible info. You're really the sum of the 5 closest people around you. So if you want to go in a certain direction and you look around you, and there isn't people in that direction, then there likely is a change that needs to be made. Maybe not in all the 5 closest people to you. Can't change your spouse, maybe. Can't change your family. But, when you think about it in a person's life over time, you get baggage and you get, maybe complacency. Maybe that's the wrong word. It's just too strong. But you get set in your sort of way. And if you don't take a step back to look at, okay, where do I want to go? The people I'm around aren't going in the direction I want to go around. I'm not going to nuke them, but I'm going to keep them a little bit separated and maybe not take their decisions or what they say as their opinions as deep, and use those in your life. And again, mentors now with the internet, Cynthia, you're a great mentor to many people, and it doesn't necessarily have to be built up on this big pedestal or be an old, for me, it's an old wise guy that's fit and 69 years old with a gray hair, that's like a mentor. Well, no, it could be, my mom has never owned a business. She's a great mentor in sort of a lifestyle thing. So, you got different mentors and different sort of people that you respect their views on things for different silos of wealth.
Absolutely. And I love that because we're unique aspects to us. There's the family, there's the health, there's the business. So one mentor cannot do it all because it doesn't see us as a whole person. It only sees one segment of us. So I love that advice. So you and I are both based in BC. What are some of the benefits of being based in this province?
Well, I think for anybody who is lifestyle focused, that obviously, well, for anyone who's not from BC, if you haven't been here, for sure, come check it out. It is very diverse. So if you're a curious person, outdoor person, interested in learning, I don't know any other place. And again, I just came from Nashville, where lots of people say, "Oh, it's the best, best place." Yeah, for live music, it's the best place. For stinky streets and that sort of thing, no, it's not the best place. And for being in a town where it was a heat wave of 40 degrees in a flat, city, again, that's for some ideal. For my own program, it isn't. But in BC, you have the outdoors. You've got a very vibrant business culture. Again, leave all the political views aside for certain people, but there is great communities. And now with the remote working ability, you're seeing more and more people from bigger centers with bigger maybe ideas or more complex ideology going to smaller centers and instituting that there. Again, Duncan is super fortunate to have you around and bringing some ideas. You're exposed to meeting lots of people that are not from there. And so you got ground roots of sort of the small town sort of feel. And, the one thing I do notice about, being in a small town, I'm in Salmon Arm, my staff and my office is all in Kelowna. So when I go to the school to pick up my kids or drop them off, there is a ton of dads at drop off. And I maybe everyone's like, why does he think that's so weird? In my head, in my ideology of like being a child, my father traveled 180 days a year. He worked a ton to provide for us, which was the narrative. I don't remember ever seeing dads at drop off, so not to see that here. You got, maybe the world's changed because of COVID. I don't know, but being in a smaller center from, Kelowna to 18,000 people in Salmon Arm, family is a lot bigger. And so, again, I think you find that outside of the, you find it in a lot of BC towns.
Yeah. And that's what I love. There's so many unique towns with their unique personalities that you can find a connection. So what's the challenge that you have of being based in BC? Because there's always the other side.
Well, I think it's just not getting, caught up in the politics of, is Alberta more go-getter? So is there a movement to go that direction, or can BC be a place where you've got everyone, succeeding and, business isn't, it always seems, again, this expose my belly button for a sec, but there's tax, you focus on business owner. And there is, sort of like make them pay, they're doing well, make them pay. And so again, that it's all really what you focus on though, Cynthia, all that stuff in the news. I don't watch the news. I maintain a pretty optimistic outlook and positive vibe. So I think part of that is not getting caught up in that stuff. I go to work, I pay my taxes. I try to, hire the best people that, can handle that stuff. But with 50% tax rate for some is not ideal.
So as you mentioned, you and I are both based in small communities, which is a little bit different to getting established. So if somebody was looking to get established in a new community and it was a small community, what advice would you give them to help them find a foothold?
Sure. Great question. And I'll be super truthful. I've lived here now. So we moved almost 3 years ago. I haven't found that groove in the small town. So coming from Kelowna, yeah, and again, Kelowna is only maybe 240,000 people. Kelowna is an interesting beast. For anyone who's been there, that's an interesting sociological, whatever you want to call it, going on there. A lot of pretension, a lot of flash, and a lot of money there. And then coming to a smaller town, there is quite a bit of money here. It's just shown different, and it resonates different, and people value things different. So I have, I'm being, super truthful that I haven't broken into this market as easy as I thought. Maybe it's my ego coming here. Oh, I got all these great ideas. I've got some experience. People just like flock to me. No, that actually hasn't happened. And so we've revamped a bit of our sort of language, a little bit of our narrative and our brand in the last couple of months to accommodate that. I live here. I do commute 1 day a week to Kelowna, and my staff is all there. Everything else is remote. But I do love people, and I do want to work. I do want to work where I live and work with the people. I think we do have good ideas and value to add. It's just breaking into that sort of like everyone's kind of dealt with the same OG people they've always dealt with, and so new is kind of weird, and you're not really part. And time will heal that. As a young kind of go-getter, that I think I could do better at, getting out there, visiting. I'm on boards, I'm starting to volunteer more and be part of that. So it'll come. But for anyone else, going to a new community, I think it really is getting involved with whatever groups. When you move to a town, who, within a couple months, you can figure out who's kind of the influencers. And I don't mean the like selfie things. I mean like the real deal business people, the community leaders, the donators, who's donating lots, the hospital foundation. You can figure all that out relatively quick. And then being where those people are and just acknowledging, you've got kids in school, you've got, a ton of people there. So depending, again, listener, your business could be way different than mine. But I think there's definitely grounds to explore it.
Yeah. And I would say for the parents listening, being involved in your school and volunteering is a great way. Just, at the fun fairs, at the pizza days. So let's talk about success and challenges. How do you define success? But more importantly, how do you celebrate?
Well, so I think this way, how you define success is a moving target. I think you're allowed to, when you're younger. Again, I think of my goals when I was 18, it was like I wanted $1 million in assets at 30. I wanted $1 million in cash at 40. And like those were the, when the reality is, if listener, you make 200,000 a year and work 4 days a week, take 7 weeks of holidays, and you save a bit and you're good at paying down your mortgage, that, especially with real estate, for lots of people, they bought a piece of real estate for 500. It's worth 1.5 20 years later. They could literally sell that house and live on the cash if you don't spend that much from the time you're 65 on. And that could be your retirement plan. It doesn't have to look like the financial advisors market. And, you'll go into them and they'll say, well, we've got this money. What should we do with it? It's like, you got to invest it. It's like that isn't, my narrative for sure. So success for myself has evolved. I have, you can't see it in the video, but it's just off to the side, a calendar where, when we moved here, the first year, dropping our kids off at school was important to me. So every time I did, I put a green mark on every day. And it would be, 4 times average a week. I go to Kelowna 1 day. So that to me, that year, success was that. Going to the gym, that's all part of it. But the other, markers I've had is snowmobiling's a big passion of mine in the winter. So how many days of that? So on the calendar, marking it seems like an easy thing to do, but when you want to do something serious, it does take planning and it does take sacrifice. So one of the things I did a while back, probably 4 years ago now, I took Friday mornings off for about 6 months, and then I took all of Fridays off. And it was a test to say, like, if I take this day off, like, what if the whole business goes for crap? And you know what? Thursday afternoon at 1:00, I'm getting pretty aggressive in what my task list is. And I'm able to get that done. So Friday comes, that day, it moves and shakes. Sometimes I'll do something with my boys if they got a pro D day and my wife is working, or I will like have a self day where I literally will go snowmobiling, because then when the weekend comes, I've got enough time for family. So there's the example I use in my talks is 168 hours in a week. So if you divide that up, it's 56 hours for sleep, 56 hours for yourself, 56 hours a week for work or your business. So the U bucket includes your family. And so if you think you get home at 5 and you're up till 10, that's 5 hours with the family. Well, if you want to do something for yourself, it's got to come from somewhere. Yeah. And 56 hours is 7 hours of sleep a night. That's what I like to get. I don't know, other people can go on less, more. But if you want to get more out of that week, you got to either cut down the work or be more efficient in the U. So get the work hours down, be more efficient is the only way that I saw a way to do it. So that's what I think is success. It's moving. And you had the second part of your question was challenges. Is that what you said?
Yeah. How do you deal with the fear and doubt and the challenges that arise?
Of business or of what?
Either, just as an entrepreneur, because like we said, we're multidimensional.
Yeah. I think it's a very simple question, but it gets pretty deep. I don't know how deep people go in your thing, but there's, whether it's, should we do this website? It's 15 grand to, should I take Friday off? Should I hire this person? Should I, So there's this, how do you deal with the challenges? I think it's just not getting too excited about what's happening. And it's more how you react and taking in and then digesting and then saying, okay, what do I logically need to do? And if it comes right away, great. If it doesn't, I'm going to solicit help. One of the things when 2014 was around, I was the president of this little mastermind group. We had business owner group, but at the specific coffee, I was talking about leaving the partnership that I was previously in. And the most conservative guy at the table, who through all our meetings, he was always kind of had the most conservative sort of, suggestions in nature. He said, I think you just got to go for it. And when he said that, I thought, okay, I got to go. And so using that group to like ask yourself, and this is, one's an accountant, two of them own a collision repair shop, and one's a tech guy. And then there's another group of kind of 8 that are part of it on a lower level. But that group for sure helped me push over that decision of like, hey, I got 5 very smart people at the table that we've all vetted sort of what the options are. I've got enough credentials that if I leave and start this business, I could probably work somewhere and make 150 grand a year. It's not my ideal, but that's okay. And so let's go for it. And, that year I left, I doubled the business. And, it was a meeting that I had with my partners. And I said, hey, I want my name on the sign. And they said, kind of laughed and said, well, that wouldn't never happen. And I said, well, what would need to happen? You got to double your income. And so I left and that happened. So again, for any entrepreneurs that are kind of questioning themselves or doubting, you don't know what the future holds. And we all doubt on the low side, or we all default to negative because it makes you sound smarter. But the reality is it can go either way. And if you've been successful in just the most simple things, keeping your lawn up to date, keeping your driveway shoveled, likely you're going to be successful in what you set out to do, especially if your butt's on the line and your reputation.
And I love how you brought your mentors in and you look for outside instead of getting stuck in your own head, because too often we get stuck in our own head and have a story we've told ourselves, which might not be true. So
you don't always have to believe your thoughts.
You've touched on the question I was going to ask is, how do you establish that work-life balance? So you've got your Fridays off and you find that time for you. Is there any other tricks or advice that you'd give for people that are, I was talking to someone the other day and they said, oh, that term work-life balance, I've heard of it, jokingly, right?
Yeah.
And so some people think it's overused, but for those of us that actually take the work-life balance, we know that it adds value. So is there any tips of how to get to that for somebody who's struggling to juggle all the balls?
Using as success. You mentioned Fridays off. The decision making. One of the things that Tim Ferriss, again, he's a book writer, wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. He had something called batching. And so it's something I read a long time ago and kept it. So batching is you check your emails at 8 a.m., you check them at 12, and maybe you check them at the end of the day. If you can, try not to. So in my process with my staff, I found I was getting so many emails just CC'd from staff. So for any entrepreneur who has staff, this probably resonates. Ideally, you'd like to say, don't CC me, but there's some things you need to be kind of up to speed with. So I created in Outlook a rule that any internal emails coming from staff go into an inbox right below my inbox called Inbox Internal. And so all those emails go there, and I only check those once a day. So those ones, you go in, scroll them, you see you're CC'd. If I need to do something, they put my name at the bottom of the email in bold, and then they have a hyphen and then the text. So I know, like I usually just skim the email, go right to the bottom. No question for me. I delete the email. But now I'm still up to speed with what's going on. If it's really important, they phone me, or we use Zoom chat. So they would get on there. I know that that's sort of first point of contact. We're doing a big, what we call a meeting surge, so again, in our client block, we meet all of our clients in September and all of them in January. So we call those surges where we meet everyone. It's the same thing. So it makes it more efficient. For, again, not getting too into the weeds of our business, but the clients can access us anytime in the year. But those 2 times, they know that we're going to have a formal sit down and talk about 2 specific things in their wealth. We book those meetings at 10, 12, and 2. So all my staff, my assistants know when they're booking meetings or they're talking to clients, setting those up. And we just had a meeting about it today because in August, they'll start doing it. They know that 10, 12, and 2. And that way I know that I've got enough time to get the kids to school in the morning if I need to. I might have enough time to have another meeting that I would book or squeeze in there, just depending on workload. But I know that in my days for 3 weeks in September, we are going to be stacked on those times. And for the most part, clients are super accommodating. If you go far enough out, they can make it work. And again, we're remote. So again, taking all the decisions, try to distill it down, and that just frees up your bandwidth to, get more done.
I love that. And I do the same thing, the block of time working so that you can just have your head down, get some work done so you don't have all the distractions.
Totally.
Although in the summer when kids are home, not so easy.
Yeah.
And is there any advice that you've received, whether it be a book you've read or a mentor or a podcast you've heard that's resonated with you and really helped guide your journey that you want to share with our listeners?
Think and Grow Rich is a major famous, book that lots of entrepreneurs use. And I just often pull it out and we'll just open it and just start reading. It's just something that, again, it always sort of just reorientates my mind to where am I going? Because you get caught up in we should do this. That stacks staff input at our firm is welcome. And so sometimes we can get too much going on and I need to kind of rein it back and go, okay, thanks for all the input. Your fingerprints are on it. We're going this direction, and give that leadership. But that book is hands down the best for reorientating to a couple of things. A couple of things of where are you going? What's your goal? But also, I'm not super religious, but talking about the universe and putting things out there and goal setting and really materializing what you want using your subconscious. So again, I know this isn't a psychology thing, but there's tons of books on that. But that is, if we look back at some of our biggest files or best clients that, had the most wealth, it isn't because we did a marketing campaign. It's because we knew someone we did a good job for, we knew someone, we knew this person a long time ago. We were nice people, we were likable, and all of a sudden they just showed up. Yeah. But usually it coincides with where my brain space is at. And here's a funny example. So I went on a kick about a year ago where I was like, I think luck has to be a part of the equation. So if a person's lucky, one of my good friends is super lucky. And again, I don't know if it's because he swings at the plate and does lots of stuff that it just appears he's lucky, but he always never seems to miss on whatever he's up to. And so I thought, well, what is it? And so I bought like 5 or 6 books. I read a ton on luck. I don't have the one here, but so that week after I finished all those books, I had 3 things happen that were like out of the ordinary, extremely good for the business. And so is it coincidence? I don't know, but I do think that we as humans do not have a clue yet about the power of the universe, about the frequencies in our brain, connection, and all that stuff.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And it's about, for me, focusing on what I do want instead of focusing on what I don't want.
I love it. Yeah.
So limit that energy on the don't and really tune in on what I want. So this has been a great conversation. And before we go, is there anything else you want to add, or is there any way that people can get a hold of you?
Yeah. So the website that we use is servicewealth.com, and it's SERVISS. I do also have a podcast called The Picture of Wealth. And I do have a book coming out for construction business owners called Man's Picture of Wealth. So that should be out in the next couple months. But my final thought would be, for anyone, if it's specific, entrepreneur, you want more confidence in general. We found a direct connection to, if you can get your finances clear, that gives you more confidence in your financial world. It gives you more confidence in your relationship with your partner. The household is a lot more tamer, and it allows you to go after opportunities. So the one piece that I would leave you with is something called the Life Clarity Summit. And this is imagine a pyramid, a drawing of a pyramid. At the bottom of the pyramid is, the bottom section, and that's your financial plan. And you even listening to this podcast and what I'm about to tell you, we could call that your financial plan. But the plan includes your goals, where are you going? It includes your BAM, which is your bare ass minimum expenses. Those are the expenses that exist for you to exist, not the fancy Louis Vuitton or the travel. That's just, what are those expenses? You understand that. If you need a spreadsheet, send me an email. I'm happy to share it to you or share it with you for free. So we got your BAM, we've got your goals, and we use something called an asset map. Again, you can do it right off our website. It says get started. You can do one for yourself and we'll send it to you. But you call it a financial dashboard. This is just simply writing down what you have for insurance, what you have for investments, debt, and savings. Get all those. And so you got your real estate in there as well. So if you've written that down, even on one piece of paper, scribbled out the numbers, get it on one piece of paper, you'll be ahead of 40% of Canadians. The next layer up is your risk management. So once you got a plan, we're going to manage the risk. What happens if you die? What happens if you, get sick or injured and can't work? Do you have a will? All those things go in risk management. And the big thing in there is leisure spending. Are you spending enough? If you don't spend enough, it actually is a risk in your plan. And again, I'm happy to go into that in depth if you've got more interest in that. Next layer up is accumulation. So this is where you've got your plan. We've managed the risk that might happen or get in the way of your plan. And then we got the accumulation. So this is where you're starting to save money, maybe putting money into emergency savings, investments, maybe paying down debt, and mental health. Mental health is a big thing that we talk, that often a lot of financial professionals don't wade into, but we do. And part of that is what you are putting in your mind. And I find it in, said example, 60-year-old business owner, they just sold their business for $4 million. That's great. They're rich, but they've got a bad relationship with their spouse, or maybe they don't have a spouse because they're on their second divorce. They got a bad relationship with their kids, and they got a bad relationship with themselves. They got negative self-talk. So really, they're rich, but they are not wealthy. And that's a huge cavity that can develop in someone's plan, even as young as age 30, if you're not set on the right path. The peak, is preservation zone. This is where you're going to either sell your business or exit your career, and estate planning. And yeah, you could say estate planning, like save tax and do life insurance, but we like to call it like, what are you going to educate the next generation on? If you don't have kids, how are you mentoring a niece or a nephew? Or if you do have kids, what are you telling them? And that is a major component of estate planning.
Wow, I think that's absolutely fascinating. I love that you include the mental health because it's key. Well, thank you for this. And I look forward to learning more about you on your website and your book when it comes out.
Thanks, Cynthia, for all you do for us entrepreneurs in Canada.
Thank you.